Now to our GMA cover story, Utah becoming the first state to legalize free-range parenting that gives parents the freedom to let their kids do unsupervised activities as a way to encourage independence. The bill already facing backlash, with some critics saying it could put children's safety at risk.
Okay.
It's the controversial parenting method designed to let kids be kids, just with a little less parental supervision. And now one state is standing by the concept of free-range parenting. The governor of Utah signing a bill into law Friday that gives parents the freedom to allow their children to do more activities independently without being penalized for child neglect, like walking to school, playing outside, and staying home alone.
We want kids to be able to learn how to navigate the world so that when they're adults, they're fully prepared to handle things on their own.
The bill, which passed unanimously, is the first of its kind in the U.S. and permits a child whose basic needs are met and who is of sufficient age and maturity to avoid harm to engage in those independent activities.
The way you get brave and self-sufficient and problem-solving is by doing some things on your own.
Lenore Skenazy first coined the phrase free-range parenting back in 2008 after she wrote an article about why she let her then 9-year-old son ride the subway alone. Since then,
we have to let parents be rational and loving and trust their kids and give them the independence that we all cherish.
Besides fear for their child's safety, some parents worry they might face legal ramifications if they give their children some independence. In 2015, the Maitiv family of Silver Spring, Maryland made headlines when authorities accused them of child neglect after they allowed their 2 children, ages 6 and 10, to play and walk home from a local park unsupervised.
Our rights were violated. I mean, the Constitution very clearly protects parents' rights to raise their kids the way they see fit.
Those charges were ultimately dropped, and the Maitivs say they still consider themselves free-range parents.
We're joined now by Dr. Dave Anderson, clinical psychologist at the Child Mind Institute. And we were just talking because I struggle with this. I have a 12-year-old, and she has a bus stop 4 blocks from the house. I make sure she's walked to the bus stop to wait. But then when she comes home, since she's just on a mission to go home, I let her walk back by herself. But I think, is that bad? Is that a bad parent move?
Well, that's the thing. Free-range parenting is, on the extreme kind of progressive end of parenting philosophies. It's not necessarily science. And we take everything on a case-by-case basis.
Right. What age is it okay to do X, Y, and Z?
Right. And parents want their kids to be independent, want to give opportunities to explore, but for any parent, that's going to be a personal decision. If your 12-year-old is capable of walking home from the bus stop by themselves, that's something that you might make a decision about, where another 12-year-old may be a little bit too impulsive, or may end up doing a little bit of shopping on the way home where you don't exactly know where they are.
Right. And so at least in the state of Utah, the police or the officials can't get involved when you as a parent get to make that decision.
Right. And it's kind of a reaction, in comparison to, say, states like Maryland, where kids under 14 may not be able to be out unsupervised. So when you talk about self-reliance or independence, it's about a parent practicing with their kid how they might be independent in a particular situation.
Yeah, you have to talk about what could happen. I mean, I just letting her take the dog to the dog park in Union Square, I was worried, actually thinking, is that okay? Is that allowed? Is that legal? I'm not sure. What are the potential risks about letting your children have perhaps too much freedom?
I mean, the risk is something that anybody might know from common sense. It's just that kids might get into things impulsively that, parents weren't anticipating. And so it's something where we want to know the situation well. We want to be clear with the guidelines that'll keep our kids safe. And then we want to practice. The old phrase that we use is kind of the I do, we do, you do model. A parent models for their kid how they might be safe and follow rules. Then you do it together. And then, as you provide scaffolding for your kid, you let them become a little bit more independent.
Yeah, I like that. Any recommendations for parents who want to try and because I'm all about kids being independent, but we all as parents want our kids to be safe.
Right.
That's the #1 goal as a parent, to make sure you do no harm. But what are some tips for parents who are thinking about maybe easing into this type of parenting style?
It would be to start with well-worn paths, parts of the community that are really well known to a family, where a kid knows the rules, they might know other people in that particular area, and where you can, practice a little bit beforehand. So you go to the playground together a few times, you practice the walk home while a parent's trailing a child, and then maybe you let them walk home from the bus stop by themselves.
Great tips, Dr. Dave Anderson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.